app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
No opening yet of the 21st South Freeway. It remains closed eastbound near Redwood Road with police activity. Again, you will need to use an alternate such as I-80 and I-215's West Belt or a surface street like 2100 South and 3500 South. The other Valley freeways look really good with no other problems. Prep for winter. Get a furnace inspection from a certified heating contractor to check for safety and efficiency. A reminder from Enbridge Gas. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
It's a beautiful day out there, getting to 84 degrees for our high today, and this entire week will almost be about 15 degrees above average with sunny skies. Right now it's 79 degrees and sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Today is October 7th, marking for Israel a date that will never be forgotten. Hamas fighters, of course, entered Israel, massacred 1,200 people, and started a war that now threatens to engulf the entire region. And as we look back 1 year later, there are interesting lessons that we have to look to and to rethink about. Many wish they could go back to October the 6th of last year, just as many Americans after September 11th were hoping to go back to September 10th and the way things were. But should we be always trying to go back to what it was, or should we be trying to reframe what it is and what it will yet become? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Obviously, very somber remembrances today, October the 7th. Again, marking for Israel a truly horrific day as Hamas terrorists swarmed across the border from Gaza. It was a stunning and bloody attack on southern Israel. Innocents at a music festival, and so many others of these stories that we have heard, those that were taken as hostages, still about 100 that remain in captivity 1 year later. And the thing that I want to get to today is maybe a little different in terms of a think again moment. I think there's a lot of lessons in terms of what has happened and what's gone on, and you can break down all the different angles in terms of the geopolitics of it all. But I think there's also some important humanity in it all. And actually, the thing that got me rethinking today just a little bit was an op-ed piece in the Jerusalem Post today from Rabbi Moshe Tarragon. And he actually made a really stunning statement to me. He said, any attempt to draw lessons must first acknowledge that we're still living through this unfolding war. Lives remain at risk. Our condition is still perilous. So before we explore what we've learned, we have to deeply empathize with the pain endured by so many, recognize the profound layers of trauma that were absorbed, and understand that it will take generations to actually heal. So dispassionate discussions about lessons or takeaways are insensitive and callous. First and foremost lesson is about suffering and what we do when others suffer, whether they are people in our own community, whether they are people in communities far away, whether they are part of a religious tradition, part of a particular country or community. Our job is to stop and to be with, to sit with, to mourn with, to link arms and move forward with. I think that's how we have to rethink what we do after events like this. And as I've been thinking this through over the weekend and all the different suffering on all the different aspects, obviously everything that takes place in the Middle East is complicated and complex with not just decades but centuries of challenges and disputes, wars, back and forth. And there's a lot to unpack and there's a lot to sort through there. We're not going to attempt to do that in this segment of the show. But we do know what evil looks like. Our good friend J.D. Tuchili, who we're going to go back to here in the upcoming segment, he offered a really interesting piece in terms of just good and evil when it comes to this kind of bloody attack, this kind of terrorism, that we know what that is. And when it gets to the terrorism portion of the program, when innocent civilians are the target, that differentiates it from anything else. A war between two armies is one thing. Attacks on innocent civilians, completely different. And they should be treated different. Wars you can prosecute and navigate and get to a resolution. You can negotiate a peace, and things can be done. But when you talk about these things that begin with the innocent, when the target is the innocent, that's a different ballgame to me. And I think J.D. Tichili pointed that out really well at Reason.com today. You can check out his piece there. Because when you see those that carry out attacks on innocents, that's a revealing moment, to be sure. And so that's one piece of the puzzle. Another piece of the puzzle that I want to get to today is this whole idea that as we go through these kinds of situations, and again, this is referring back to the piece in the Jerusalem Post today, the rabbi said, this experience has hopefully taught us to speak with greater intellectual humility and less certainty about our own place in history. That's a pretty smart thing to be saying on a day like today. I think a lot of times we get to the us and them portions of the program. We get to our tribes and to what we think is right, and whether that's politics or whether that's community or school districts or businesses or sports teams. It's us and them. And so often we get so confident, so certain in what we know or what we think we know, that it often prevents us from having real conversations about the real important stuff. And so that we should speak with greater intellectual humility and less certainty. We always say that instant certainty is the enemy of truth. It prevents us from getting to the truth in many situations. And so as you look at that from a longer-term view, here's where I think the rubber hits the road in terms of the therefore what component to all of this. And that is, regardless of what the setting or the situation is, far more important than the ideological stance is unity. And unity needs to stop being a slogan or a cliche. It has to become a national priority. Leaders who unify should be elected, and those who polarize, drive wedges, should not. And that's an important conversation to get to. That unity can no longer just be a slogan. It has to be a priority. There's a big, big difference. I think one of the last things that I want to get to in this segment, as we look back at October the 7th of a year ago and look at where we are, I think this is also really important framing in terms of how we go about it with that intellectual humility. So in an age of information, disinformation, hatred still exists, bigotry still exists, ignorance still exists. And the irony of all of that is I think many of us thought that, once the internet really took off and social media exploded, that would liberate people from ignorance and propaganda. And instead, we've sort of had the opposite. That the internet and social media have gotten in the way and actually made it worse. Because now we have bots and algorithms that are shaping our public opinion. They're influencing public policy, and they're trying to impact elections along the way. And so this is one of those very cautionary think again moments in my mind, that as we advance as a society, the very tools that we thought would liberate us are often those that trip us up, that create roadblocks or barriers, or that ensnare us in wrong thinking or more division. And so as we explore those kinds of things, again, they're great tools. The internet, social media, all that is great. Those are great tools. They should expand our knowledge. They should help us see things for what they are. They should help us get to the truth. But often as I said before, as humanity advances, those very tools that we thought were just going to make everything exposed, give us a direct path to truth, no filters, are now becoming the big barriers, the things that drive bigger wedges, and the things that actually prevent us from getting to the truth on a host of issues. And so as I think through where we are, no, we can't go back to October the 6th for those innocents that were at a music festival and they're in southern Israel from the hatred and the barbarism of those terrorists. Just as we can't go back to September the 10th before the attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. So we can't go back. So we have to go forward. And I think the beginning of the better days was what happened the day after, on October the 8th and September the 12th, when people came together, when unity was no longer a slogan, where unity was no longer something just for a campaign rally or a catchy ad, but where unity went beyond just being a slogan and actually became a priority. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The election is less than a month away.
We've accomplished so much together.
You deserve better.
And if you're feeling less than informed on local races, get booted up on the candidates. Local races, state races, and national votes that matter to you. Listen all this week in the car. Your Voice, Your Vote 2024 on KSL News Radio.
Winter is coming, but there's still time to replace those drafty old windows before the cold comes and drives up your heating bill. Just make one call and take advantage of the Advanced Window Products Fall Special. $2,500 off on 10 windows or more, and that's $2,500 off their already low factory direct prices, because at Advanced Window Products, they're the factory. Your windows are built in their facility right here in Salt Lake City. You're buying local, and with their lifetime guarantee, you don't ever have to call some faraway state for help. Advanced Window Products is right here, proudly backing up their work. So make one call, save on your heating bill, and get a rebate from the energy companies. Advanced Window Products offers 0% financing. They can even give you amazing new windows with no money down. And don't forget, $2,500 off their factory direct prices, but you have to call now. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindows.com.
Head to Logan for funky fall fun. Jump on your brooms and join us for a fantastic fall break. Here's what's brewing. The North Logan Pumpkin Walk, October 10th through the 15th. Okay, there's no way to describe this amazing and colorful experience, but I will try. There are hundreds of carved pumpkins, plus dozens of displays crafted from painted pumpkins, gourds, and other random vegetables. You have to see it for yourself, and it's free. Celebrate Utah's Harvest Heritage October 18th and 19th at the American West Heritage Center's Fall Harvest Festival. Grain threshing, apple pressing, pony rides, train rides, antique tractors, games, and fun. Get your scream on all month long for spooky encounters on the historic downtown Logan Ghost Tour, or traipsing through a couple of giant corn mazes that may or may not be haunted. Check out live theater and music performances, great restaurants, golf, and USU football games. Head to Logan for funky fall fun. Explore logan.com/fall.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
Slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Do you have an IRA or 401k? It's natural to think of this as being your money, right? But remember, you still have to pay taxes when you withdraw this money in retirement. And you could be paying a lot more in taxes on these accounts than you know. A lot more. Learn the strategies that can help you reduce or eliminate your taxes in retirement. Don't miss a special edition of Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL News Radio 1027.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
This is Jay Broadbent from Alpine Home Medical. I'm excited to let you know we're currently having a sale on power scooters. As we celebrate the spirit of freedom and independence, we want to make sure you have the chance to experience it. We have a wide range of power scooters designed to enhance your mobility, and they're all available at a discounted price. These special offers only come around every couple of years, and once they're gone, they're gone. Come visit us at any of our 11 locations to take advantage of these fantastic deals, or you can browse our selection of discounted scooters on our website. We're committed to providing the 5-star experience. We can't wait to assist you in finding the perfect power scooter. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Save $2,500 on a new furnace and air conditioner from Any Hour Services. For more information, call Any Hour Services or schedule a free estimate online at anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, the deadly road rage incident this morning is part of a growing problem. The number of road rage cases where someone pulled a gun has roughly doubled from a year ago. Second, more than 80% of the soil in Utah is abnormally dry right now. Third, nearly 24,000 Nissan Leaf EVs are being recalled. Nissan says using a level 3 fast charger could cause the battery to overheat and catch fire. Right now, it's 79 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Well, America has found itself at a crossroads as an increasing number of its citizens become dependent on government transfers. Now, we want to break down why that's happening, what's driving that shift, and we actually mentioned it in the last segment as we were talking about the non-voters, those who've disconnected from the voting process because they're just exhausted and exasperated by it all, and the fact that most of them won't re-engage over an issue like border security or immigration, abortion, whatever it may be. But the things that they want to talk about and hear about are community, compassion, self-reliance, and upward mobility. And so all of those things are interconnected, especially for the non-voters. So it's interesting that we're going to take a little dive into this of what's going on and what this actually does when such a large number of our citizens are getting such a big sum of their income from the government. And to help us make sense of the dollars and cents, J.D. Tuccilli, of course, contributing editor at Reason, has a great piece on Americans growing increasingly dependent on government payments. And J.D., welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, break this one down for us. It seems that we're getting more dependent on government rather than less. What do the numbers say?
Yeah, I mean, this is a study from the Economic Innovation Group, which is a bipartisan group based in Washington, D.C. And what they found is that the percentage of personal income that comes from government payments, government benefits of some sort or another, has doubled. It's now at about 18% of personal income, up from half of that in 1970. Even more stark is the number of counties in the United States where more than a quarter of personal income comes from government payments has risen from less than 1% of counties in the U.S. in 1970 to a majority, 53% now. It's a bizarre and kind of troubling transformation of the American culture if you value the idea of independence not being reliant upon the government, the state, and if you realize that, there's an old saying, he who takes the king's coin becomes the king's man. If you're reliant on the state for your income, there's always the chance that the state is going to ask for something in return. Certainly obedience.
Yeah.
But it definitely brings American independence into question.
Yeah, and I had to reread that number several times, that a majority of counties, 53% of the counties in America, that means more than a quarter of the personal income is coming from the government. That's a stunning number.
It really is a stunning number, and it's because of some changes in the demographics and also the politics of the United States. Part of it, I mean, a big part of it is the fact that Americans are aging. Now, we're not aging as fast as, say, the Japanese or some European countries, but we're aging, and we have big programs, big spending programs in place that, quite frankly, make our seniors dependent upon the government. And so the biggest contributors to this reliance on the state are the Social Security program and Medicare. So those are the two biggest components of reliance upon government payments. The third one is Medicaid, which provides health care to those who are lower income. There was a big expansion of Medicaid over the past decade, especially under Obamacare. That bumped that up. Medicaid is actually the fastest growing component of government payments, government transfer payments to Americans. But even so, it doesn't. It really is overshadowed by the effect that the aging population has on these numbers, and the fact that we've set in place a situation where our senior citizens are dependent upon Social Security and Medicare, two government-run programs, meaning that they really are reliant on the state and potentially subject to state influence and control.
Yeah, that is a scary thought as we continue to watch those numbers, especially as it relates to Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Those are just big numbers there. Break it down for us in terms of some of the others that are still on this. We're firm believers that working and engaging is not just a monetary thing. It's a good for the soul thing as well. What are the ramifications, and what are we seeing with those? Not just necessarily those that are aging. That one, I think we can say, okay, at least you can see that. What's happening with some of those younger recipients? And again, those percentages are still pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, other programs that are included in this are veterans benefits, the earned income tax credits, supplemental nutrition and assistance program, what we know as food stamps, supplemental security income, and Pell Grants, which go to college students. And what it means is that this ever increasing, especially over the last 2 decades. I mean, the numbers really jumped. The percentage of personal income coming from government has really jumped over the last 20, 25 years. More and more Americans are reliant on this, and there are big implications on this for the economy, for instance. When you have more and more people who are reliant on the state, something has to fund that, right? Well, that comes from taxes. And there's a real risk that when you start taxing the innovative sectors of the economy, you actually may disincentivize the kind of economic growth, prosperity, and dynamism that is required to build the prosperity that you would then tax to fund these programs. There's also a risk that you create a complacency. As more and more people collect checks from the government, there's less and less drive to take entrepreneurial risk, to be dynamic, and to start new businesses that build prosperity for the future. So you end up with something that looks like, well, frankly, like Europe in some cases, with static economies that aren't growing. So it's I worry about the independence factor, but there's also the dynamism. I mean, you could end up with kind of a stagnant economy where people are just collecting the checks, and it creeps up year by year with more and more people on what works out to be the government dole, and you're not building your economy and creating the prosperity that you would need to even keep those programs going.
Right. I think that's one of the downstreams that a lot of people don't think about is that as it does become more stagnant, as people get more complacent or more dependent on that coming in, that as you said, they become more risk averse. And also a lot of these programs, there's not an exit ramp. There's not a glide path out. And for some, if they try to be entrepreneurial or they try to work their way up, they sort of have this windfall tax and the rug kind of gets pulled out from underneath them. And so it makes it safer. Anyone who's trying to feed a family or keep a roof over their head is surely not going to do something that's going to cause them to have less money to make the bills by the end of the month. And so how do we change that dynamic? What's that conversation look like?
Well, EIG, the Economic Innovation Group, calls for a mix of tax hikes, entitlement reform, and sort of a growth-oriented industrial policy where government kind of tries to guide the economy towards more investments and more dynamism. Unfortunately, I think that well, first of all, the tax hikes have a problem in and of themselves. You can disincentivize, private sector activity. But more government guidance means a larger government and the larger government is what got us in this situation to begin with. I don't think there's an easy off-ramp from this other than people deciding for themselves that they won't be dependent, that there really is, there's a value in pursuing an entrepreneurial path, starting businesses, taking jobs, and creating prosperity rather than in being dependent. On a societal level, it's kind of hard to create a policy that backs away from the kind of dependency that politicians frankly like and on which a lot of people have come to rely.
Yeah.
So as individuals, I think we have to decide that we're not going to fall into that trap.
Always grateful to have J.D. Ticilli on the line. Great insight as always. We're going to step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. Dana Perino from Fox News and former press secretary for George W. Bush. We'll talk to her coming up next. Stick around.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. One expert says road rage tragedies like the one on the 201 freeway this morning often start from nothing, dealing with the road itself.
Is really just the tip of the iceberg.
Dr. Amanda McNabb with the Huntsman Mental Health Institute says when people start road rage situations, it's usually a tipping point with stress or something else completely unrelated they're dealing with. We are getting closer to the holidays, which she says can be stressful on top of what's going on with the world. Plus, a lot of us have gotten burned out since the pandemic.
It's really sad to see so many individuals losing their lives because of what's happening on the road. These are things that really could be prevented.
She says if you do find yourself getting angry behind the wheel, try playing calming music, take deep breaths, and pull over if necessary and call someone who can help you. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The White House is trying to stop misinformation from being spread that storm recovery funds are being redirected to undocumented migrants.
This chunk of money that FEMA did spend on services for migrants like housing, etc., that is true that they spent it, is a separate congressionally appropriated chunk of money from the money pool that would be used for hurricane relief. And FEMA's finances aren't like your finances at home, where if you have some money left over in one side of things, you can transfer it over to the other. That's not how congressionally appropriated money works. If Congress says you have to use money for one purpose, which in this case they said for services for migrants, you have to use it for that purpose. And then they said, here's your chunk of money for hurricane relief. You get to use it for this purpose.
ABC's Jay O'Brien reporting your money at this moment. The Dow down 411 points, the S&P down 56 points, the NASDAQ off 214 points. Coming up, above average temperatures, KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
And now a minute of kindness brought to you by One Kind Act a Day. As an engaged and caring grandpa, Craig Hansen would gather his grandkids every Sunday to eat ice cream and read the Sunday funnies from the newspaper. However, in 2020, COVID made that impossible. Not to be deterred, Hansen started posting videos of himself reading comics for his grandkids on YouTube. Hansen's genuine kindness and infectious energy could not be contained to just his family, and his videos were discovered and began to be shared. Hansen is now the surrogate grandfather to over 500,000 subscribers as he posts educational and uplifting content, along with plenty of comics, to his YouTube channel, Grandpa Reads the Comics. Each video works to make the world a kinder, brighter place. A Minute of Kindness is brought to you by One Kind Act a Day. Find out more online at thepowerofkind.org. That's thepowerofkind.org.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Is this house a good price compared to others in the area? Are prices going up or down? If I don't make an offer right this very moment, will I miss my chance? These are just some of the questions a home buyer might ask. And these are the sorts of questions an agent who is a realtor can help answer. Because realtors have the expertise, data, and access to specialty training to help you navigate the process of buying a home. They provide support, guidance, and have your back every step of the way. That's what realtors do, because that's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Some very good news. SR 201 is open once again. The closure has been lifted at Redwood Road. All traffic is starting to move through the area again, and you can take the 21st South Freeway heading eastbound from the West Belt over to I-15. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we have above average temperatures all week long. Today, our high will be 84 degrees, getting to 86 on Thursday, and sunny skies throughout the week. Right now, it's 81 degrees and sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is always a good day when Dana Perino joins us on the show. She's actually in the Beehive State, up at Utah State with the Hatch Foundation and the Hatch Center Symposium, Freedom of Speech, Improving Civil Dialogue on College Campuses. Of course, Dana Perino, many of you know her from the Bush administration as the press secretary, in the line of fire every day, answering the hard questions, doing the hard thing, and, of course, for many years now as part of Fox News. And, Dana, welcome to the Beehive State, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you.
Interesting, as we record today, for the first time in the history of ever, President Joe Biden walked into the White House press briefing today. That was a little bit of a October surprise in and of itself. But for our listeners, just kind of give a sense of what walking into that press room is actually all about.
Well, I was surprised to see that because my main question is why at this point. I don't understand. I actually don't understand why the press secretary continues to brief every day either. I mean, the best thing that they could do if they do want Kamala Harris to win is to stay out of the way. However, the country is dealing with a horrible natural disaster with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, and perhaps he felt it was appropriate at that time to do it. Maybe he wanted to show Kamala Harris that it's possible to do a press conference. If this is going to be aired on Monday, I think we'll be at 82 days without a press conference from the Democratic nominee. But the White House briefing room, it's interesting. A lot of people will have seen it on TV, but if you ever get to go in person, you'll be surprised at how small it is. It's not a big space, and a lot of people are crammed in there. I revere the place. I loved the job. I love the position of that job. I love the function of it. I love what it represents to the world, and how there's so many different audiences that watch a White House press briefing. You have American citizens, of course, the press. You have our adversaries and our allies and people who want to know what the leader of the free world is thinking. So it's a great place to be able to get your message out. I think that more presidents should utilize it. I've never, ever been a fan of Joe Biden trying to do press questions over the roar of the helicopter on the South Lawn. President Trump did it all the time to great effect, but they would often even turn off the blades so that he could be heard. But his voice carries.
Yeah.
Biden's voice doesn't carry. And I, at one point, said, I'm not going to keep translating this for them. If the White House press office wants the president to take questions, then take questions in the diplomatic reception room before he goes out there in front of the helicopter. So, hey, look, I'll take any American president that wants to communicate directly to the American people through the press. I'll take all of that. That's great.
Yeah, and it is that it's part of that First Amendment belonging to we the people, not to the president, not to the press, but we have to have these spaces where those conversations can happen. And you spent the day today with the Orangey Hatch Foundation up there on the campus of Utah State University, having another crucial conversation about spaces where we do need to have these kinds of conversations.
What an opportunity for me. First of all, as you know, I was born in Evanston, Wyoming. My dad actually took classes here, graduate level classes at Utah State University back in the mid-'70s. I spent a lot of time on road trips with my family all throughout Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. And so for me, it was an opportunity to come home, but to also just be reminded of the roots of the values that are emblematic of the Mountain West and the rugged individualism, the character, honesty, modesty, humility, all of the things that really help keep me grounded. And it's really embodied here at the Orangey Hatch Foundation. The idea of civility and solutions, that's what I knew when it came to Orrin Hatch, Senator Hatch, who was very good to me. And I think that, we have to look to him as an example of how we can move forward in what can feel like pretty polarized times.
Yeah. Give us a little sense of your conversations there on campus today. What did you learn? What surprised you?
Well, there is a longing. I would say this is not a surprise, but there is a longing in the country for people to get back together. And this campus is so beautiful, and you're having this spate of tremendous weather in the fall here.
Just for you, Dana. Just for you.
I will say that I have never been on this particular campus. I was blown away. I said if I was a prospective student who came here for a tour, I would just say immediately, yes, I will accept if you are going to extend me an offer to attend this university. One of the panelists today said that USU punches above its weight. And I think that's not just in Washington, D.C. when it makes a presence there, but across the board. What a great, wonderful institution where there really is an openness from the faculty to make sure that people feel confident and comfortable as students to express themselves. But also we talked a lot about listening today. So it's one thing to be willing to express your opinion, but it's another to be willing to listen to somebody else's.
And I love fostering that on the college campus. We need it everywhere, that kind of I think it's an interesting combination. I think it's one that you possessed in a unique way from that podium where you are giving out a lot of information. But there was kind of that radical curiosity and also that sense of humility that we may not have all the answers, but we'll figure them out and we'll go find them if we need to. But that creates such a different environment to actually get to those more important principle questions as opposed to just the politics and the theatrics of it all.
Yeah, one of my messages today was that it's okay to say you don't know, or that you need to think about it a little bit more before you answer a particular question. And one of the great things about life is to have a curious mind. And it's a great value that you can take not only at a university, but with you through life.
Yeah. We always talk about it in the context of a chance to think again about what you think you know about a particular policy or an area where you can say, wow, I don't get that, or I wonder why she thinks that's a good policy. I wonder why he thinks that's the best solution to poverty or homelessness or the border or whatever it might be. But that kind of conversation, we seem so far afield, even on the debate stage. I wanted to get your thoughts in terms of how do we get to a debate that has a little more substance and a little more policy in it than much of what we've seen in the last couple cycles.
Well, actually, I think that there were a lot of people who were pleasantly surprised with the vice presidential debate, which was very substantive on policy and quite civil. And if you look at how J.D. Vance often would say, well, that's a good point. I hadn't heard that. I know that you have good intentions. And then Tim Walz would say the same thing to J.D. Vance. And that felt good. I mean, it was interesting to watch people the next day say, It's possible. And that was really good. And I think that the Orrin G. Hatch Foundation does a lot of that kind of work here for students. And it's really needed in a world where people are feeling disconnected from one another. And I think the other thing we talked about today was the importance of doing things in person.
Yes.
To not hiding behind your screens and to make yourself get out of your living room where you can be behind a computer and actually going to see humans. And there's a movement by a lot of corporations to bring people back to the office. And that's because they've seen a decline in productivity and innovation as people have worked from home. And I know that can be very convenient for people, and a hybrid schedule might work really well in order to keep good talent, but you have to get people back together.
No question about that. And I think that's so crucial. We've been talking a lot this week about gathering and just how powerful that is to be in person. I think it was Brene Brown said that getting together and crying in person could actually change the whole world.
But also laughing in person.
Yes,
and I think that's one of the reasons the Five does so well. Is we talk about a lot of serious issues, but we can have a sense of humor about things. And that is one of the reasons that show is still number one.
Yeah, I'm so glad you raised that, because it is another thing that seems to be absent. In fact, we were just talking about it in the newsroom, that it used to be that presidents in particular could do some fun things and some funny things. But now if you even try something like that, the chances that it's going to be weaponized against you are so high that we're actually learning less and less about how our leaders think, how they process, what they value, because they can't even be their authentic self and have a little fun in a moment. Actually,
it's interesting you say that, because the Al Smith dinner happens every year in New York City. And it's a place where everybody comes, and each presidential candidate every 4 years is invited to come to the dinner, and they both give a humorous speech. And it's such a great, wonderful, unifying event. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has decided to take a pass on that this year. It's a missed opportunity for her, and I don't think they should let her send a surrogate. Like, if you miss the opportunity, then you miss the opportunity. Too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dana, before we let you go, we'd always keep you all afternoon if you'd stick with us. But we know you have
I love being
other
with
duties.
you.
Give us one last thing. What's been on your mind? What's an under the radar thing that you're just kind of keeping your eye on, or something you wish maybe we were thinking about or talking about just a little bit more in this country?
Well, we are living in the middle of a political realignment. And we're all looking for answers of why does this person feel this way now, or why does that person feel that way now? And I think the answer is we just don't know yet. We're in the middle of it, and we don't have to have the answer right away. Let's just do our best, and hopefully we live long enough to read the history of the time that we're living in so that we can understand it better. But we don't have to understand it all now. We just have to be nicer to each other.
Yeah. Fantastic. As always, Dana Perino, we always appreciate you joining us. Glad you've been in the Beehive State with the Orrin G. Hatch Foundation up on the campus of Utah State University, and great insight as always. And we look forward to having you back again real soon.
Thank you. Good to talk to you. Bye.
It's my conversation with Dana Perino. She was in town last week up on the campus of Utah State University. A fantastic conversation up there. Appreciate all her perspective that she shared with us. A lot to think about. Maybe laughing and crying together in public. Maybe that's the ticket we got to get back to. We'll be right back.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah.
Trail mix, beef jerky, mixing all the soda flavors at the gas station soda machine. Snacks are better on the road. The gas is better when it's top tier. And the pit stop is better when there's a dinosaur there. Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with DinoCare, our top tier gasoline. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com. Sinclair, fill up your life.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from the station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
I know this is a silly question, but wouldn't you like to have more money in your savings account?
Sure.
UCCU wants to help you do that with some high-rate savings options with yields up to 5.25%.
So you can supercharge your savings. Take that money that you have sitting in a savings account, transfer it to UCCU, and make more money on your money.
They have incredibly high yields on money market savings accounts and short-term savings certificates. We've talked about that before, but if you've forgotten a savings certificate, you just make one deposit up front and then let your money grow over a fixed period of time. And they've got them laid out for 3 months, 6 months, even 12 months.
Or 5 years, whatever works for you. And if you need immediate access to your money, UCCU's Money Market will give you a high yield and anytime access.
So if you've got your money in a savings account at a different lending institution, transfer it over and start earning more on your money today with yields up to 5.25%.
Get a true financial advocate, one that's always outperforming the average rates of Utah banks.
Go to uccu.com. You're going to love where you bank.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, Utah's unemployment rate ticked up. A year ago, it was 9th lowest in the nation. Now it's 17th lowest. Second, one expert says road rage tragedies like the one on the 201 freeway this morning often start from stress and mental health issues. Third, the White House is trying to stop misinformation being spread that storm recovery funds are being redirected to undocumented migrants. Right now, it's 81 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and it's time once again to think again about what you think you know. And today we're going to rethink what we think we know when it comes to freedom. Now, there are a few words that are thrown around more casually onto more bumper stickers, T-shirts, and political campaign slogans than the word freedom. But we want to dig underneath the hood of that just a little bit more. Really thrilled to have joining us on the program Ann Applebaum, staff writer at The Atlantic and co-host of Autocracy in America. We've featured this a couple of times now on the show because they're getting to some really crucial conversations about things that matter and how this autocracy is undermining some of the very things it often claims to be supporting or promoting. And Ann, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
All right. So let's dig into this in terms of freedom. I don't think there's very few words that get thrown around more during campaign season than freedom. But break it down for us. What should we really be thinking about or thinking again about when it comes to freedom?
So the word freedom, which, by the way, during the American Revolution was used almost interchangeably with democracy, freedom, liberty, republic. These were words that were used, all the time. Has come to have different meanings in America. And there's a history of the word freedom in which the word freedom didn't mean freedom for all of us to be engaged in public life, freedom of speech. It wasn't a specific freedom. It was rather freedom from the federal government. So freedom maybe to break the law, freedom in the before the Civil War to hold slaves, freedom after the Civil War to enact Jim Crow laws. So freedom has been used by some American politicians as almost an anti-democratic word. In other words, some people get to have freedom and some people don't. And in the podcast, we explore how that got used at different times in history, where it comes from, and how you can still hear it now.
Yeah, and it's such a great deep dive and just a really powerful listen. One of the things that you got to that really caught my attention, because I think this is where we're easily pulled off track, and that is how this concept of freedom can be used to both support and to undermine the institutions of democracy. Unpack that for us.
Right. So if you're talking about freedom from the government, like freedom to break the law, freedom to do as you wish, then you're not talking about the freedom to engage in public life. So democratic institutions do make you free, but they make you free inside a context, right? So you're free, but other people are also free, and you respect their freedom. And freedom means that people have rights, for example. So everybody can participate in politics, or everybody has a right to be part of the economy. If you argue for a different kind of freedom, namely your freedom to do what you want, and you're not worried about anybody else, then that can be anti-democratic, because your group is free, but others are not. And this sounds very theoretical, but you can look very specifically, as I said, at moments in American history when people used the word freedom in order to deny other people freedom. You can look at, for example, we spoke in the podcast to a historian from Vanderbilt called Jefferson Cowie, who traces the way this word is used in one particular town in Alabama. And he talks already in the early 19th century, he talks about people in that region demanding to be free of the federal government because the federal government had made treaties with local Native Americans, and they wanted to be free to break the treaties. But when you're free to break the treaties and free to break the law, then you're not abiding by the law and you're not participating in democracy. And so that's the way the word has been used in the past. But of course, there's a positive vision of freedom as well. Freedom, freedom inside institutions, freedom to be, freedom to share politics with other people.
Yeah, and so as you look at that, especially with where we are as a nation right now, kind of walk us through some thoughts, some ideas in terms of how, as Americans, we can balance both those individual freedoms, freedom from and freedom to, along with our collective responsibilities to each other in what we, the people, choose to do together.
Well, all of us are living here together, whether we want to be or not, and so some form of politics whereby people's rights are respected and people's ability to be as free as possible within the context of the law is possible. It seems like it's kind of prerequisite. Creating a system in which some people have more rights than others, or some people are more free than others, is going to create immediately inequality and unhappiness. But you can hear that language still. Sometimes, I mean, one of the things that Cowie noticed was that the language on January the 6th, some of the protesters who were demanding to overthrow the results of a democratic election were also using the word freedom. So freedom from democracy, freedom to disobey the law. This is where you're in the territory, you're heading towards anarchy. Yeah. And really, in a world where there's no law, and in a world where there's no where there's no order and where there are no institutions, then you aren't really free, because you're then subject to whoever is the warlord, or whoever has the most money, or whoever is able to dominate your particular community.
Yeah, and that is the slippery slope of all of it, to be sure. Ann Applebaum, staff writer at The Atlantic, co-host of Autocracy in America. This is episode number 5 in the series, The Danger of Campaigning for Freedom. And again, rethinking what we think we know about that is an important thing for all of us to get to. Ann, thanks so much for making time for us today. Appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you.
All right, again, that's Ann Applebaum, staff writer at The Atlantic, co-host of Autocracy in America. And it is easy, especially in campaign season. In fact, I love the way they started their podcast and it was literally going through several of the candidates talking about freedom and the way they were throwing it about. And there's a lot of different components to that we got to unpack and really think through. And as Ann described there at the end, we all have a responsibility, because if it's all freedom from and not that collective freedom to and what we choose to do together, then you end up in anarchy, or you end up in a space where, as she said, the warlord ends up being the one who's ruling, and then there's really no freedom. And so all of these things can be very slippery slopes if we're not careful, or if we become casual and we start to disengage from the process. This is why engaging in the process matters, because that's where ultimate freedom resides, is when we figure it out, when we do our homework, when we're informed, we're engaged, and we're having conversations from a curious, intellectually humble space. We get to know each other better, we get to understand what we believe better, and we get to form that more perfect union better together. Well, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour: the number of road rage cases where police say someone pulled a gun has roughly doubled from a year ago. KSL News Radio's Becky Bruce tracks the numbers.
We can't be exact about the numbers because prior to July, no agency was required to track road rage as its own separate crime. But I looked back through KSL's reporting over the past 2 years and found at least 14 cases in which police say someone brandished or pointed a gun at another car or driver, or actually fired shots, compared to 7 for all of 2023.
3 people have died in road rage cases involving a gun so far in 2024, with nearly 3 months left on the calendar. The Salt Lake Chamber and the Kempsey-Gardner Policy Institute report that Utah's unemployment rate has ticked up after ranking 9th lowest in this time last year. Utah's unemployment rate ranked 17th lowest at 3.3%. However, Utah's unemployment rate remains relatively low by historical standards. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Hurricane Milton has rapidly strengthened to a Category 5 storm this afternoon, and an evacuation is underway in Florida.
You're already hearing about evacuation orders all up and down the Florida West Coast. It is imperative that people listen to those evacuation orders and follow them.
That was Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome. Your money at this moment: the Dow has lost 398 points, the S&P off 55 points, and the NASDAQ is also off 213 points. Coming up, record-breaking October temperatures. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
If you need a new roof, there's a reason IWC Roofing is the #1 residential roofing contractor in Utah. IWC has been replacing roofs for 27 years. They are professionals. You don't get some janky subcontractor fiddling around up there. You get experienced IWC employees on your roof, and they finish most jobs in a single day. They're in, they're out, and they power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now you're wondering about the price. After all, IWC is one of the few Owens Corning Platinum certified contractors in the entire state, but they offer value pricing, and right now, take advantage of their fall special. $2,000 off your quote. And of course, they'll work with you on financing. So call IWC Roofing, the highest rated roofing contractor in Utah, plus $2,000 off. Right now, call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690, or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
Get up to a 30% upfront bonus to use for your retirement income, or up to 12% per year to help grow your retirement income. Whether you're in retirement or will be retiring within 10 years, Trajan Wealth can offer some of the highest guarantees in the business. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and I know no one wants to work forever. We all need to retire someday, and I know you've worked hard for your money, so now is the time to guarantee it. Take advantage of up to a 30% upfront bonus for your retirement income, or up to 12% per year for retirement income. Don't woulda, shoulda, coulda. Get up to a 30% bonus just for opening an account, or up to 12% per year for retirement income. Don't leave your retirement to chance. Retire the right way, the Trajan way, with Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Annuity guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. DBA in most states says Trajan Wealth Insurance Solutions.
IVC is celebrating 20 years providing quality service in Utah. You've probably heard their saying by now, life starts when the pain stops. IVC is the most trusted interventional and vein center in the state, and they've been voted Best of Utah Valley 10 years running. The 7 physicians at IVC provide state-of-the-art, comprehensive vein care with many years of experience. The team at IVC takes the time to get to know you and your veins so you're comfortable with the right diagnosis and the right treatment. Patients are like family at IVC. You've also heard many radio ads over the years with real people describing how IVC has dramatically improved their quality of life by eliminating the pain and discomfort caused by varicose veins. Well, what are you waiting for? Don't let vein disease slow you down even one more day, because life starts when the pain stops. Visit ivein.com today to set up a free screening. That's ivein.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A good drive on the Valley Freeways once again. And a reminder, eastbound SR 201 is open at Redwood Road. Salt Lake City PD on the scene of a medical situation in traffic at 6 South and 6th West. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
A really beautiful forecast ahead of us. Temperatures 10 to 15 degrees above average. Highs in the mid to low 80s, and that's going to be like that through Saturday, and no signs of moisture either. Right now, it's 81 degrees and sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We're going to go to live remarks from Vice President Harris. She's giving remarks currently marking the anniversary of the October 7th attack from Hamas into Israel. Let's take a listen.
Including the American citizens, living and deceased, Omer, Idan, Sagi, Keith, Judy, God, and Ite. What is asked of us? We must uphold the commitment to repair the world, an idea that has been passed on throughout generations of the Jewish people and across many faiths. And to that end, we must work to relieve the immense suffering of innocent Palestinians in Gaza who have experienced so much pain and loss over the year. What is asked of us? We must continue to see light amidst the darkness. As the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said, a people that can walk through the valley of the shadow of death and still rejoice is a people that cannot be defeated by any force or fear. That is why today we plant a pomegranate tree, which in Judaism is a symbol of hope and righteousness. So for years to come, this pomegranate tree will stand here, spreading its roots and growing stronger, to remind future vice presidents of the United States, their families, and all who pass through these grounds, not only of the horror of October 7th, but the strength and the endurance of the Jewish people. It will remind us all not to abandon the goal of peace, dignity, and security for all. And it will remind us all to always have faith. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the second gentleman, my husband, Doug.
Listening to
thank you.
Remarks now by the second gentleman, Doug Imhoff.
As we gather here today on what was the deadliest day for Jewish people since the Holocaust, I am still filled with pain and despair. This is an incredibly challenging day for Jews around the world, myself included. October 7th hit us hard as a community. We are still hurting, and today feels just as raw as it did 1 year ago. What happened on October 7th is seared into our souls. I can't stop thinking about the hostages and their families and all of those we've lost over the past year. Earlier today, I attended AJC's National October 7th Memorial Commemoration at 6 and I recited a prayer for peace, that we all see the day soon when this war and bloodshed come to an end. As the first Jewish spouse of an American president or vice president, I take this role very seriously. Kamala is the one who encouraged me to use my platform I have to fight against anti-Semitism and hate. She is also the person who encouraged me to lean into my Jewish faith. When we first moved into this residence, we affixed a mezuzah on the doorpost with our family present. Now, as we prepare to leave a legacy of our time here, we plant this pomegranate tree to honor this solemn day and for the families who will come after us to enjoy. This is the first tree we've planted since we moved in here, and it'll be the first fruit tree ever planted by a second family at the residence.
Second gentleman, Doug Imhoff, there as they are planting a pomegranate tree on this October the 7th. A lot of news to get to today, and we're going to continue that. We're going to move forward with Joe Khalil, of course, from News Nation. And Joel, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be with you.
Obviously, a lot of things going on and a lot of challenges as it relates to hurricane season, what's going on. Give us just a quick update in terms of what you're hearing, what you're sensing, especially as it relates to funding, the potential shortfalls we're going to see, what Congress has done, what they might need to do moving forward.
Yeah, so we just hopped off of a phone call with some FEMA officials. They were taking questions from reporters about this. And what they have told us is FEMA is not in danger of running out of their disaster relief funding before the end of Hurricane Milton, whatever that cost is going to be. You know, we don't know yet how severe that storm it will be whenever it makes landfall. But that's a little bit different than their message last week. We did hear from the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, last week, who said something to the effect of, there is a concern after Helene that if there's another major storm, FEMA's disaster fund may run out and Congress may need to appropriate more money. And that sparked a whole round of headlines. But today, a different tune, because they're saying we have the resources, we've got the personnel, and yes, we also have the funding. Beyond that, beyond Milton, we may have to go back to the drawing board, ask Congress for more money. But at least for these two storms, they say they are in good shape and prepared for whatever comes.
As you listen to that press conference and that briefing, give us a sense of what else you heard. What are some of the big concerns? What should we be keeping our eye on as this marches its way towards the Florida coast there? And looks like it will hit probably sometime on Wednesday.
Yeah, and so some of the concern is, what we always hear about these storms ahead, which is that they really want people to evacuate. If you're in the path, they still struggle to get everybody to willingly leave their homes in some cases. FEMA today was stressing, as was, the White House, you don't necessarily need to evacuate 100 or 200 yards away from, miles away from your home. You could go 5 miles, 10 miles away and get to higher ground. But if you are in the path, if your local news, if your county alert system is telling you to leave, then you should absolutely adhere to that. Another major challenge, which may not be typical, this may be new in the world we're living in now, is this element of disinformation and misinformation. The idea that has been put out by some maybe political actors that, FEMA is refusing to give out services, or that they're limiting severely how much people can get in terms of reimbursements to only $750 if you lose your home, which is, ridiculous. Obviously, that's not going to cover a home that's lost. That's not the case. And FEMA is very concerned that people are listening and believing that disinformation, and they are then failing to come forward and even apply for aid that they otherwise would be entitled to and would get. So they're saying, try to tune that noise out. They're pleading with local officials who carry some weight. Do not spread that disinformation. Tell people the truth, be honest about what resources are available to them, and they can essentially get their homes covered and whatever immediate needs that they may need covered.
Yeah, no question about that. And the weaponization of all of this, the politics of all of it. Of course, you hear a lot of that from your unique perch there on Capitol Hill. What else are you hearing in that aspect, and what else do we need to cut through? It seems like they're conflating a few issues in terms of what got used at the southern border for people coming across out of FEMA, but those are obviously different pockets and pools of money. What else should we be being careful of?
Yeah, so that sort of claim has now been debunked over, multiple times over. And basically, yes, it is true. FEMA has administered more than $1 billion over the last 2 years for migrant services, housing, all of that stuff. But that $1 billion comes from an entirely different source of money than hurricane and disaster relief. And while I'm not downplaying how much money $1 billion is, that is certainly a big number. And you've got every right, if you have an opinion that that's too much money spent on that issue, that's totally fine to have that opinion. But it's absolutely not true that victims of Hurricane Helene are not going to get their money because migrants, got services. It's to the tune of $20 billion annually now or more that we spend on disaster relief, significantly more than what went to, the migrant housing thing. So different pools entirely, they do not affect each other. And Congress may have to come back at some point soon and replenish that fund. They just upped it to $20 billion more 2 or 3 weeks ago before they left for recess. If that money runs out, which it entirely may, it's possible. Helene already is expected to cost more than $10 billion on its own. Then we may have to be in a position where Congress comes back and appropriates more. That's something that, from my perch on Capitol Hill, I'm going to be watching very closely.
Good stuff, as always. Joe Khalil, News Nation's Washington, D.C. correspondent, always helps us break it all down. Joe, thanks so much for joining us today.
Of course. Happy to do it. Thank you.
All right, again, that's Joe Khalil from News Nation's Washington, D.C. correspondent. And there are a lot of things that get conflated in these kind of situations, especially 28 days out from an election. And the important thing is to not conflate and make sure you keep everything separate and very clear. Check your facts, check your sources. We'll be right back.
1 year later.
This is a music festival. Teenagers came to hear music, to dance.
We were just trying to stay alive.
What is the chance for peace?
Multiple missiles penetrating that missile defense shield, one north of Tel Aviv.
We explore what the future holds in a widening conflict. The war in Gaza. This week on KSL News Radio.
Do you have chirping smoke detectors? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you've ever experienced chirping smoke detectors, you already know how annoying it can be. A great first step to try and stop the chirping is to change the batteries. If the chirping continues, it's possible that your smoke detector has gone bad. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't even realize that manufacturers recommend replacing the smoke detector altogether after 10 years. If you remove the smoke detector from the wall, on the back you should find a date of when it was made. Do a little math and you'll know how old it is. Now, Any Hour Services knows being a homeowner means you've got a list a mile long of things to do around the house, and check my electrical system probably isn't one of them. That's why we've put together this radio special for any homeowners listening. One of our licensed electricians will perform a comprehensive inspection of your electrical system that includes testing those smoke detectors and give you a full written report for only $29. But you have to mention this ad when you call. Call Any Hour Services to schedule at 801-443-7300. 801-443-7300. Any Hour Services.
I'm Utah Tax Attorney Jordan Wilcox. Listen to what actual clients have had to say about working with us.
Hi, I'm Gary. I'm a building contractor. About a year prior to the market crashing, we had a big job that was unable to pay a bill of about 6 figures. We were still left with a very difficult situation with the IRS. Eventually, at the end of the day, I realized that the penalties and interest were growing faster than my ability to save to deal with it. I had talked to people, and I felt that Jordan Wilcox represented best what I thought could help me, primarily because they were local, and I needed a bigger solution than I was coming up with. It takes too long to figure it out on your own.
Hi, I'm Jordan Wilcox. You need a tax attorney that's not afraid to fight for you. Visit taxhelput.com to schedule your free consultation.
I would recommend Jordan Wilcox. It feels very good to not have the IRS on your back.
That's taxhelput.com.
At Common Spirit Health, we know that lifelong health and well-being starts with primary care. So we have doctors and providers who see you, hear you, know you, and understand you. Because understanding you means understanding your needs. And that leads to a deeper knowledge of the prevention, wellness, and treatment options that may be best for you. It's primary care that treats your whole family like family. It's primary care with human kindness. Discover all the ways you can find and connect with a primary care provider at mountain.commonspirit.org.
God called Joseph Smith in the Sacred Grove. God called Brigham Young in a second grove in 1844. Joseph was martyred. Enemies hoped the church would die too. There was talk of multiple successors. Nauvoo was in chaos. But God made his will known during a conference with hundreds of saints witnessing. 6 days in August. Film opens Thursday, but Cinemark is offering sneak peeks tonight. Take your family tonight. Learn more about Brigham Young. Hurry. Limited tickets at 6daysinAugust.com.
Did you know that your largest investment asset might not be your retirement account or home? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. Most people don't realize that their life insurance policy is actually an asset they can sell. But for almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. We've even created a free policy value calculator at abacuspays.com so you can find out in seconds what we might pay for your policy. There are no fees and no obligations, just information. Knowing the value of your life insurance policy is as important as knowing the value of your home, your equity portfolio, or your finances in total. Discover the valuable information you need to understand the current market value for your life insurance, and then get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Visit abacuspays.com to learn more and use our free policy value calculator today.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, the number of road rage cases where police say someone pulled a gun has roughly doubled from a year ago. Second, Utah's unemployment rate has ticked up. After ranking 9th lowest this time of year last year, it's now 17th lowest. Third, Hurricane Milton has rapidly strengthened to a Category 5 storm this afternoon, and an evacuation is underway in Florida. Right now, it's 81 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, in the wake of rising anti-Semitism, particularly following the October 7th attack on Israel exactly 1 year ago today, American synagogues face a crucial moment to redefine and define their role inside Jewish communities. These safe havens, community anchors, houses of assembly, have the potential to really be a dynamic space. And we've been talking a lot about gathering and what it means to gather and why that's so important in times of mourning, in times of stress, in times of celebration. And really thrilled to have joining us back on the program once again, Samuel Abrams, professor of politics at Sarah Lawrence College, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's dive into this. Obviously, on a day like today, where there's a lot of reflection back Some wishing we could go back to October the 6th world. But here we are way past October the 7th in a very different place. And you wrote a fascinating piece for Deseret.com recently talking about how Jewish students need a new kind of dynamic support and that synagogues can be part of that solution. Describe that for us.
Absolutely. So since October 7th, I've spent time with thousands of Jewish students and quite a few others as well, talking through what happened in Israel. And what became very clear is that these students are looking for a place to congregate, a place to go. Beit Knesset is the Hebrew word that we use for synagogue, and it means house of community, house of congregation. And you realize that we're not doing that. We have a built-in network of synagogues around the country. They're often near college and university campuses. Large numbers of Jewish folks teach on these campuses. And they need to open up their doors. They need to say, come here, let's become part of this community, become part of a larger community off campus, and know that you're not alone. These students feel so isolated, so threatened, so helpless. We have the capacity to improve the lives of these students very easily, and we need to do it. And one thing to mention is that synagogues have been closing left and right for years. Membership is down. Interest in these groups, in these institutions, is down. This is a perfect way to say, hey, we still have a really important function and a reason to exist. And there's no day like today to really say that to the Jewish community on campus.
Yeah, and opening those doors and welcoming folks in and having that experience, that transformational moment. I keep going back to this. It's one of my favorite quotes by Alice Waters. Says, this is the power of gathering. It inspires us delightfully to be more hopeful, more joyful, more thoughtful, in a word, more alive. And I don't know if there's ever been a more important time for us to have all of those things within that sense of community. And so kind of talk us through what maybe some of the barriers are and what we need to do to make sure we're creating space to be more alive.
So amazingly, I think the barriers here are actually very low. We have the facilities. We amazingly have the resources financially to do it. And, it's funny you should mention Alice Waters. She's someone who was very big when I was out in California, and she was a big part of my thinking. And this is she probably had a huge influence in my thinking about this now, about how she saw Chez Panisse and how she saw community around food in the Berkeley area. It's phenomenal. And we have the capacity to do this and to create these spaces, sacred and secular as one. We need to have the imagination to do it. We need the religious leadership and the lay leadership to say, come on in, let's do it. And I want to be very clear. Synagogues are open to everybody. Anyone can come in. Anyone is welcome. There's nothing anyone can't see. But it doesn't mean that we should keep the doors closed and not invite more folks in. And I think that's the real difference. Anyone is welcome, but maybe we open the door and actually say, come on in.
Come on in.
Or maybe we go to and let's go to the campus and say, come on, let's come over here. Have a night, take a moment to breathe. Everything is okay here. And we just need to do that.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about many of the students that you've had the opportunity to process October 7th with over the course of the last year, and where you think they are in this whole process, and what else do they need? What kinds of support specifically? What can we do to make a difference there?
So just knowing that you're asking this question and having them hear it makes a difference. One of the that you had mentioned just now is process. I'm not so sure anyone's having a chance to process this because even before the grief was able to set in and an understanding of the facts and what happened in Israel, the attacks began, the anti-Semitism began, the hate boiled up, and the defensive posture had to be taken on. I hate, and I really don't like using the word hate, but I hate that I even have to say this. I don't know if the Jewish community, especially the students, have had a chance to fully process because before they could properly grieve, they had to go on the defense. Yeah. What we need is large numbers of community members, and we have the data on this. We know where Americans are on this. Americans are overwhelmingly supportive of Israel's right to self-defense. They are overwhelmingly supportive of religious diversity and pluralism of faith. We need as a community across the nation to say, stop this. You're welcome to have your opinions. Stop assaulting and attacking and threatening the Jewish community. We're here for you. It's okay. Students aren't hearing that. They don't feel connected, and they don't know how to handle this. They're looking for legal support. They're looking for tactical on-the-ground support in terms of how do you learn how to fight back and push back. And I think most importantly, they're looking for a break and a chance to, again, feel at ease. I had a chance to attend the Israeli Independence Day parade, and I'm going to get emotional here. It was one of the few moments in the last year in New York that I felt like I could let my guard down for 5 minutes without having to defend myself, without having to worry about someone calling me something awful, or just, a moment to breathe. The students need that too.
Yeah, that isolation is such a hard thing. It creates all of that mental gymnastics that isolation usually brings. And then, as you mentioned, just having that chance to exhale. When you're walking around in a defensive crouch, that is exhausting. And that is an exhaustion that doesn't go away with just a good night's rest or a long weekend trip. And I think we've got to create conversations that allow people to exhale, to breathe, to get out of that defensive crouch. Because that'll lead us, I think, to the path towards the better spaces, and where even some of those high holy days that are so important, that are so instructive as well as inspiring, those are the places we ultimately have to get to.
Absolutely. And we have the space. We have the resources. Now it's about the right imagination. And I think we can get there. And I really was hesitant to even write the piece, largely because it's critical. And we need to have critical dialogue right now. Do I need to attack? And it's not an attack, but do I need to publicly criticize my own sacred institution? And do you want to do that? And I sort of wrestled with this and struggled with this and realized I need to say it because I've said it before privately, and I was having a lot of trouble getting the traction and the attention. Now we need to say it publicly because too many students are hurting. So hopefully this will open up a dialogue, as you said, and then achieve the more important goal of finding that time and that space to do it.
Yeah, that is what it's all about, and you just demonstrated why we always have you on the show. You get us to that commanding heights of moral imagination. Whenever we say there's a problem, it's not a problem of money, it's not a problem of this or that. It's usually a problem of leadership and imagination, and moral imagination is when we've got to get back to. Samuel Abrams, professor of politics at Sarah Lawrence College, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Thanks for taking us to a little higher ground today. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
All right, that's Samuel Abrams again from Sarah Lawrence College, and we need more gathering. We need it everywhere. In light of all the events going on around the world, that pluralism, that dynamics that come when we come together is what changes the world. But it's up to all of us to engage in that process. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour: Salt Lake City police have identified the victim and the suspect in a downtown shooting over the weekend. 30-year-old Gage Barrow was shot and killed on Saturday. 49-year-old Fashard Hassan Pari is accused of shooting Barrow and is being charged with murder and felony discharge of a firearm resulting in serious bodily injury. A warm, dry start to fall could impact what our water picture looks like next spring. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
The drier the soil is going into winter, the more water from the snowpack it will soak up. That leaves less water that makes it to tributaries, streams, rivers, and lakes. KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says we have to recharge the soil with water, and right now we're not doing that.
Usually October, November is when you want to do that, because then the snow really starts stacking up as we get into December, January, February.
Matt says right now it's still too early to know for sure if the soil will affect our snowpack next spring. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
Your money at this moment: the Dow has lost 398 points, the S&P has lost 55 points, and the NASDAQ is off 213 points. Coming up, we've got sunshine all next week. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hercules Credit Union is the place for you to go to look at your financial future. Why? Because they've been doing this since 1946, and it is always about growing stronger together. Right now, it's time to check out where you are on your mortgage. They have low interest rates, competitive rates that are at the lowest they've been in years. They have flexible mortgage options for you with a variety of products, everything from fixed to adjustable, FHA, VA, including options for those with less than perfect credit. Also, they have a wonderful first-time homebuyers program. They have the ability to specialize mortgages and mortgage offerings with low down payment options to bring home ownership within reach for you. because that's what they do at Hercules First Federal Credit Union. Check it out today. You can go to their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, and you can also find them online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Introducing Peach Doors and Windows. Are you ready to upgrade your home with stunning new doors but are overwhelmed with how to begin? Peach Doors is here to make the entire process smooth and stress-free. Visit their showroom to see their wide selection of wood doors, durable fiberglass, energy-efficient aluminum, oversized glass bifold doors, and so much more. It's not just about looks, it's about durability and security to protect what matters most. Let them help you find the perfect match for your home, budget, and personal style. Visit their showroom and see for yourself. No pushy sales tactics, only guidance from their experienced staff. No inflated markups just to offer so-called discounts. See their 5-star reviews where customers rate them on their attention to detail through every step of the sale and installation process. Amazing home transformations begin with windows and doors. Serving Logan to St. George, just Google Peach Building to see for yourself.
How do they get so excited about 50 yards? Think of what you could sew with that. But you need a really great sewing machine, a Bernina.
Get Bernina sewing, serging, and embroidery machines and accessories at fantastic prices. The Bernina Super Weekend Sale.
Don't miss this Dave's Bernina Super Saturday one-day event. This is the biggest sale of the year at Dave's Bernina in Provo and St. George. Saturday, October 12th. The lowest prices. Buy one, get special add-on deals, tremendous bargains on trade-ins and demo machines, and discounts on accessories. Featuring great financing offers from short-term no-interest plans to 1.9, 2.9, and up to 3.9% for 72-month options on certain machines. One day only, Saturday, October 12th.
Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
Come see the most revolutionary machine in the world, the Bernina 990.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
It's a nice and quiet drive on the Valley freeways, but in South Jordan we have a crash with possible injuries westbound on South Jordan Parkway. That's about 106 South at Redwood Road. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
A high today of 84 degrees, and we will hover in that high range throughout the rest of the week. Sunny skies. These temperatures are about 10 to 15 degrees above our average for this time of year. Right now, it's 82 degrees and sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As President Biden entered 2023 with optimism about his Middle East policy, I don't think he could have foreseen the chaos that was about to unfold as we approach the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attack on October 7th. And what it set in motion in terms of a series of events that would strain an ally relationship, would test the limits of American influence in the region. And despite all those efforts to balance support for Israel with humanitarian concerns and regional stability, he's found himself in an increasingly interesting space with not a lot of leverage, not a lot of power to shape events on the ground. In a piece that has been trending since yesterday at the Washington Post, Missy Ryan and another tag team partner that comes on our show, Karen DeYoung, wrote a great piece talking about this balancing and then what's kind of gotten out of control when it comes to the Middle East and the Biden administration. And Missy joins us on the line. She's a national security and defense writer for the Washington Post. Missy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So let's dive into this. Clearly, I think there's been this idea in the White House that they could just kind of manage and control and de-escalate a long time in the Middle East, and now it seems that it's just become this runaway train. Kind of walk us through how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, so the Biden administration had been hoping to really reorient American foreign policy away from the counterinsurgent wars that defined the 2 decades after 9/11 and really focus on China, and then countering Russia as well, especially since the war in Ukraine broke out in 2022. And I think they felt like the Middle East was pretty stable and quiet. And that all changed on October 7th, obviously, when Hamas launched its attacks into Israel. And since then, the administration really has struggled to make sure that there isn't this ever-expanding conflict in the Middle East, which, we have seen a significant expansion of the violence, not just in Gaza, but, across the Levant, now in Lebanon, and, airstrikes in Yemen, and all sorts of destabilizing actions. But, there you have also seen strain between the United States and one of its closest allies in the world, Israel, over the conduct of Israel's war against Hamas and now against Lebanese Hezbollah. So it's been a really challenging period for the administration. I think a reminder of the limits of U.S. influence, even on close partners.
Yeah, exactly that. Close partners, even with close partners, it is still a delicate diplomatic dance, to be sure, and the amount of influence that we have. I think we may overestimate that in a lot of situations. Walk us through in terms of the dynamics of that relationship and what you've seen from your unique perch there in terms of what's gone right, what's gone wrong, and where are we now in terms of, is there still influence? Is there a de-escalation button or lever that President Biden still has access to, or are we just way past all of that?
Yeah, there is a very close relationship, and Israel obviously cares a lot what the United States says. The United States is its chief financial and military backer and has been since the inception of the state. And there is a very close relationship, but I think what you're seeing here is the fact that Israel sees itself in an existential conflict, and they kind of will say, well, we need to make the decisions. We care about the United States relationship, but we have our own survival to worry about. And where the rubber hits the road, I think, is that the United States sees those decisions as counterproductive for Israel's purposes, and obviously also for the United States purposes in terms of, taking actions that sometimes have been escalatory and intensifying the instability in the region.
Yeah, one of the other things you got to in your piece that I think is so insightful is just looking at, obviously President Biden's looking at some legacy kinds of pieces. He's talked about inflection points in history. He obviously wants to have some sort of counter to China's global ambitions. How is that playing out? How is that impacting the region and kind of the strategic view of what's getting done?
I think that nobody imagined on October 7th that this conflict would be going on a year later, and certainly not this close to the election. So, Biden really had been banking on Ukraine and U.S. leadership in countering Russia's invasion as being the sort of linchpin of his foreign policy legacy. And, he had a really strong record on that. And now he has to contend with the likelihood that there's going to be, this unfinished war, and a war that looks like it's moving in the wrong direction when he steps down in January.
Yeah. And then as you look at how the current election is impacting all of this, what does that look like? Is that more emboldened Benjamin Netanyahu? Has it destabilized? Has it been a destabilizing factor in all of this? How is that playing out in the region?
Yeah, I think that we don't really know, but I do think that there are different ways you can game this out. That would Netanyahu think that he would do better under a Trump administration and be able to take more risks, or would he prefer to sort of play out the clock and do what he can under Biden? I think my gut is that the Israeli government again sees itself in this existential situation, is committed to not having another October 7th happen, and also very much under pressure to return the displaced, the tens of thousands of displaced Israelis from northern Israel back to their homes. And so the U.S. political shifts are, a factor, but not something that is like the primary factor for them.
Yeah, and as we get to this 1-year anniversary of October the 7th, obviously there's going to be some heightened tension, I'm sure, as that day comes on Monday next week. What's your sense in terms of what you're going to be watching for and what you think comes next in this area?
The administration clearly wants to de-escalate with Lebanon. They, had this ceasefire proposal that was really upended by the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, the former Hezbollah leader. I think that, it doesn't seem like quite the moment right now to get that back in place, but I think they're hoping to convince the Israelis that this should be a limited incursion, a limited campaign on the ground there, and return to some semblance of stability across the blue line, and then also continue to work towards a ceasefire in Gaza.
And then final question for you, Missy, is what is it that you're watching kind of under the headlines that maybe we're not paying enough attention to, whether we've had a lot of carrot and stick moments, we've had a lot of pleading and begging, we've had threats of sanctions and all of those kinds of things. But what, beyond all of that, are you watching underneath the headline that might be one of those tipping points or maybe one of those levers of influence that maybe isn't getting the attention it should?
Yeah, I think that you got to see what the attitudes in Congress are vis-a-vis Israel. The issue of the Gaza war really has divided Democrats in a way that has never occurred before, and you've got to ask yourself sort of what are the long-term political trends that undergird that relationship, and they could be changing.
Yeah. Great insight as always. Fantastic piece. This has been trending online since yesterday because it's so well researched, it's so well thought out, it's so well written. Missy Ryan writes about national security and defense for The Washington Post. Check out that piece at thewashingtonpost.com. And Missy, thanks so much for joining us today. Great perspective. We always appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
All right, great stuff there from Missy Ryan, as always, and we'll continue to keep our eye on the Middle East and what continues to unfold there. We're going to step aside for one last break. We'll come back with some final thoughts here on Inside Sources. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Don't you deserve health care you can count on? Well, you can count on United Healthcare with Medicare plans that fit your life today and as your needs change tomorrow. You can enjoy reliable coverage and low out-of-pocket costs with a Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare. United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans. Made for Utah, trusted everywhere. The Medicare annual enrollment period ends December 7th, so go to uhc.com/Medicare today.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. Over the years, I've talked a lot about hard water. It takes years off the life of water heaters and other appliances in your home. Leaves scum on the shower walls, and you almost need a jackhammer to remove that. I've talked about how Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer, their water softeners are maintenance-free. You just don't need adjustment, and they do the job with 2/3 less salt than other softeners. But today, I want to talk about the exhilarating feeling of stepping into a hot bath or shower and feeling that pure, soft water cascade over your skin. It feels like every pore in your body wants to stand up and start singing. And afterward, there are no itchy hard water deposits sticking all over you. You really should look into a soft water system from Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. You can learn more about Connecticut by giving them a call at 801-576-8600 or log on to Softwater Utah. Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. Then sit back and enjoy your shower even more.
Utah's biggest used RV Palooza is back and better than ever. This October 10th through the 12th at the Shops at Southtown. You're getting the best deals of the season on used travel trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, motorhomes, and more. Shop gently used RVs at the show and save thousands over fall pricing anywhere else. Find deals starting as low as $9,995, like on a 2021 Forest River Viking LS Series M238 LS tent camper. Plus, shop select new RVs at used pricing, not to mention blowout pricing on all remaining 2024s in stock. You'll also enjoy no payments until 2025 on approved credit. Finish your fall camping season in style without a single monthly payment. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Bring it to the show to get maximum trade-in value. We're even including a 1-year Bish Fix membership with every RV purchase. Your fast track to RV service repairs. And don't miss out on our Hunter Special section to keep your hunting season going strong. All this plus free admission to the Utah Used RV Palooza. 3 days only, October 10th through the 12th at the shops at Southtown. Open daily at 10 a.m., sponsored by Bish's RV. See you there.
My body is unique. I'm not okay with using drugs for weight loss.
Dieting really hasn't worked for me.
These fad diets have hurt people that I care about.
I'm Dr. Jack Thomas with Skinny Utah. Since 2016, Skinny Utah has offered effective weight loss without the shots, prepackaged meals, hormones, or shakes. So many of us are troubled by the serious side effects of lose weight fast fads and are looking for answers as to why our bodies hold on to weight where other bodies don't. The answer is actually simple. Each body is different. At Skinny Utah, we use technology to learn why your specific body holds on to weight, which foods your body can use best, and which ones to stay away from so your weight loss can be sustainable. Right now, Skinny Utah is offering $700 off, something we have never done before. Take your health and weight loss journey seriously and safely. Schedule your free weight loss strategy session at skinnyutah.com.
I did it. Safely.
Successfully.
At skinnyutah.com.
With Skinny Utah, you have nothing to lose but the weight.
It's official. KSL Sports is your official radio home of the Utah Hockey Club. When the puck hits the ice this fall, you'll hear every goal, every check, and every tension-filled moment on the KSL Sports Zone. Join us to celebrate the home opener at Delta Center on October 8th. Your exclusive home of the NHL and the Utah Hockey Club in Utah is KSL Sports in 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, so we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
Get ready for the spooky season by eliminating all of the spooky dirt, grime, and spills. Halloween brings out the best in people, but also the scariest dirt from all the foot traffic. Carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be zero resified. Right now, you can get your entire home zero resified and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting out at only $109 and take 20% off your air duct cleaning. Don't let a misdeal haunt you. Schedule at zerores.com or call 801-288-9376 and ask for this special.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. Is someone's drinking troubling you? You might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, in its latest action regarding abortion, the Supreme Court has determined it won't intervene in Texas. Second, a warm, dry start to fall could impact what our water picture looks like next spring. Third, the National Hurricane Center is urging Floridians not to ignore evacuation orders. Right now, it's 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, of course, covered a lot of ground, starting with the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attack in Israel and the events that have followed since then. And I do think it's important that we remember that we can't unpack and have all of the lesson-learned conversations because we're still kind of in the middle of it. If you missed our conversation with Samuel Abrams from Sarah Lawrence College, he talked in particular about the young people and how they haven't had a chance to really process anything. Because very soon after those attacks took place, over 1,200 that were just brutally killed, others taken hostage, still 100 hostages being held, including 4 Americans. And yet then there was this instant rise of protests and anti-Semitism. And for many, particularly in the Jewish community, was a defensive crouch. There wasn't really a chance to process. And, of course, we've had all kinds of things here in the state of Utah as well over the course of the past year, not just limited to the fallout and what has come after those Hamas attacks of a year ago, but so many other things where we've allowed contempt to really drive our behavior and be the dominant force in our behavior in so many things. And in a whole lot of things that just don't have any space for that kind of anger and hatred. Of course, we've been covering today here on KSL News Radio a deadly road rage incident from earlier this morning here in the state of Utah. And it's hard to fathom getting to that point, to that stage where a traffic incident ends deadly and what that tells us. And yes, there are a lot of things we don't know about that particular situation yet, and that will unfold, and we'll process that as it unfolds. But the important thing is to make sure we're not getting into those places. If we're always walking around, as we talked about earlier in the show, if we're always walking around in a defensive crouch, you're either going to become totally exhausted or you're going to get so much hate and anger and bitterness built up in you that you will uncork and unleash, and not just online. And when it goes from beyond just angry words and rhetoric and contempt to physical violence, then we're in a completely different space. And so as we look at how we get there, I think that's the instructive thing for us. Because whether it's a road rage incident or whether it's a war somewhere in the Middle East or whether it's just a feud in our own backyard and in our own neighborhood and community, I always say, speak in anger and you'll deliver the best speech you'll ever live to regret. And we do that a lot, far too much. We say things we shouldn't things that if we just cooled off for a minute or stepped back or took a deep breath, we might go out a little bit different. You've heard me on this show before talk about Richard Nixon. He knew a thing or two about contempt. It really was, his whole administration was fueled by that kind of anger and suspicion and hate and contempt. And yet in his final remarks, his final words to his staff, I think there was this moment of clarity where he said, always remember, others may hate you, but those who hate you don't win unless you hate them. And then you destroy yourself. And whether that's each of us individually, whether that's institutions, whether that's nations, when hate and contempt are the common driving forces, destruction's the ultimate destination. Absolute, predictable consequence. And so we have to confront that. We have to go at things just a little bit different, to not just cool things down, but to also warm things up. the kinds of relationships, the kinds of conversations we're willing to engage in, and how we go about it, and what we choose to do together. That's what we have to get back to in the country, is what do we choose to do together? That is the magic of America. What we choose to do together has always been the driving force. Now, that doesn't mean we haven't had periods where we have failed miserably to live up to the principles we profess to believe, of course. And you acknowledge those, and you learn from those, and you make change, and you step forward. And we do that in our personal lives. You can get hunkered down in being offended. You can even be preemptively offended. I see that happen all the time. People who are so certain they know what so-and-so is going to say or do that they get offended before anything ever happens. A preemptive offense. It's an amazing thing. When instead, if we would just step back and reframe, find the common ground, look for the path forward, gather, we talked about that a lot, it changes everything. Because that's when we get to this space where we can recognize that we don't have to have hate. We don't have to go skipping merrily down the road either. It's not about glasses that are rose-colored, not about group hugs and kumbayas, but it is about respect. It's also about some restraint on our own reactions. Just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. We had a great conversation about freedom today. Freedom from as well as freedom to. And I think our ultimate accountability will be with a lot of those freedom to issues, because we do have the freedom to do a lot of things in this country. What we choose to do matters. It matters for us individually, but that freedom to do really matters in what we choose to do collectively as communities and as a country. Well, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. Good afternoon. I'm Maria Chaleos, and today for Jeff Caplan, it's sunny in downtown Salt Lake City and 82 degrees. KSL's top story. 8 hours later, and 201 in West Valley City is now open after police say a road rage incident turned deadly. We have team coverage on Utah's ever-growing dangerous roads. KSL News Radio's Hugo Ricard-Bell has been tracking the story and has the latest. Hugo?
Maria, the Utah Highway Patrol has given